Joining me via telephone, she is a niece of civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr. and daughter of civil rights activist Reverend A.D. King. Let me welcome Alveda King. So great to have you on the show.
Well, it's wonderful to join you and your listeners. Hello.
You certainly have a long resume. You're an activist, author, former state representative, and now director of civil rights for the unborn, Priest for Life. If you would please tell us a little bit about Priest for Life and what you're doing in that role.
I've been with Priest for Life for 13 years. I've been pro-life since 1983. My grandfather, Martin Luther King Sr., rescued me from being aborted in 1950 when I was conceived by my mom. So I have that full testimony in how can the dream survive if we murder our children. I also had secret abortions myself as a young lady. I'm 67 years old now. I was in my 20s, and I hid those until I was born again in 1983. So the real question is this. You know, we agree with women's rights. I sure do as a woman. I say it this way. A woman has a right to choose what she does with her body. The baby is not her body. Where is the lawyer for the baby? How can the dream survive if we murder our children? So we do know that the little babies in the womb are real people, and certainly a woman can decide what she does with her body, but there's the little baby, almost like a slave. You know, the slave was owned by the slave master. So the slave master could sell the slave, kill the slave, work the slave to death or whatever. So the little baby doesn't have a voice and also doesn't have a lawyer. And that is the way I frame that question.
You've been traveling around the country and the world with this message, the pro-life message. How well has it been received?
The message is often received better when I put it in those terms. I have written several books, of course, too. America Return to God, How Can the Dream Survive, King Truth, King Rules. And as a niece of Martin Luther King Jr., who said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Well, it's pretty unjust to kill a little baby without his or her permission. And then they say, well, baby, you don't have a voice. That's your mother's decision. Well, but I'm a person. So you can't see me with your regular eyes, but just take a sonogram, an ultrasound. You can see me. I'm real. And that is part of the problem that we've had. And there have to be better solutions for women. Say if someone has been a victim of incest or human trafficking or rape or poverty or sickness. There are many issues that women have, but to take the life of the baby is really not going to ever be the best solution.
I was looking on your website where it asked the question, what is the number one killer of African Americans? And maybe it depends on who you ask, because the CDC website is saying that it's heart disease. Could you speak to that for us?
Well, the CDC may or may not count that little baby as a person, but there have been over 60 million abortions legally in America since 1973 when the law Roe v. Wade passed. It made it legal to abort babies.
You
so
said
60 million babies.
60
there
million?
Have not been 60 million people dead from heart disease in that time period, nor in war or anything like that. There have been terrible catastrophic deaths throughout that time period, but the highest number is the 60 million babies have been aborted. Almost a third of them are black babies, and we only make up 13% of the population.
You are so very passionate about this topic, and you are the executive director of a movie coming out, Roe versus Wade.
Right, Roe versus Wade is the story of how abortion became legal in America, and they tricked a lady, Norma McCorvey, who was pregnant. She wanted an abortion. She didn't even get an abortion, but they used her as the poster child to make abortion legal. It talks about Dr. Mildred Jefferson, the first black woman, African-American woman, to graduate from Harvard Medical School, and she was very, very pro-life. I am an executive director on the project, and I will be portraying the mother of Mildred Jefferson in the film.
Now, this being described as, quote, the first movie ever about the true story of Roe v. Wade. So does that allude to the fact that other movies were false?
We're not saying that they're false, but some may have had some elements of truth. But what really happened to Norma McCorvey, who was used as a poster child for abortion, who later found out that that was not what she should have done, and she became one of the greatest pro-life leaders of all of our time, of our movement, and the black doctor, the African-American doctor, who spent her whole life devoted, her whole medical career devoted to stopping it, and Dr. Bernard Nathanson, who was one of the top abortionists in the country, who recanted and turned away from abortion. So these are accounts that you never get to hear, how people regret abortion and have done everything they can to stop legal abortion.
I understand you're raising money to produce this film. Where do you stand with that?
Well, we're doing okay. We'll probably go into production in March, so we're coming along, but we will take as many donations as we can get to get this truth out.
How can people make a donation for the movie?
Just Google Roe versus Wade, the movie, and you can find it that way. But there are some older movies in the 1980s, for example, so that's not. It's the new Roe versus Wade movie.
Talk to us also about where proceeds will go for the movie.
Proceeds will benefit the pro-life movement, going to various initiatives and pregnancy care centers and all of that. And there is a book that I have, King Truth, 21 Keys to Unlock Your Spiritual Potential. It's part of what I call the King Family Legacy Trilogy for me. And that started with King Rules, and then America Returned to God, and now King Truth, 21 Keys to Unlocking Your Spiritual Potential. All of those are available on Amazon.
All right. Alveda King, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, God bless. Thank you.